Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is an actor, a comedian, and a host of the popular travel channel show Man vs. Food, where he takes on legendary eating challenges while also finding America's most delicious and unique eats. Please welcome the host, Casey Webb. What's going on, Casey?
Woo! What's up, man?
Great seeing you again. It's been a little while, so I'm like definitely appreciate you taking some time with me during my lunch break.
You're on lunch?
That's my lunch break, man. It's lunch with Biggie. We're having a little lunchtime.
You're a little late lunch though, but
yeah, late lunch. Okay. Late lunch. Well, that's the beauty of my podcast. It's evergreen. You don't ever know when you listen to it. It's I'm having lunch when you listen to it.
I appreciate you taking your lunchtime to talk to me. This is great.
For sure, man. For sure. Hey, what's your go-to lunch sandwich? What's your usual go-to?
Oof, sandwich. I was just in New Orleans, so I was crushing some po' boys, which is basically just very soft sub / hoagie / grinder bread, however, wherever you're from.
Yeah.
And typically it's either battered, fried, grilled, marinated. Could be pork, could be beef, could be shrimp. So I had a lot of different kinds of those. So right now it's either a po' boy or a banh mi. I mean,
okay.
I'm from New Jersey, so I love the sub. I love the classic, Italian. I love your classic, like even your Thanksgiving on a sub roll. It's but yeah, it's sandwiches they're like snowflakes. They're all beautiful and unique.
I love it. That's a very, very true statement right there.
Yeah.
I love them all. I had the opportunity to meet you, which was amazing. Yes. When you guys were filming Man vs. Food in Orlando, which was obviously so much fun. I kind of wanted to ask a few questions about that because obviously you've been the host now since 2017.
Yes.
So can you give a little bit, because obviously I've never talked to anyone who's actually had to audition for things and things like that. Can you tell people a little bit about, kind of like a lunch break version of like how the process was to be on the show, to become the host?
So lunch break would be a quick version. Is that what I'm assuming?
Correct. Not.
So as it turns out, in my line of work, it's oftentimes one job might lead to another, sometimes serendipitously, and that's what happened. So I did this 2-season show for YouTube with these guys called Smosh, who are wildly popular on YouTube, and they were doing their first scripted show. That director and I became friendly. She introduced me to an agent in New York. I started pitching some shows to him. One of them was a food show, and the other were scripted. So non-scripted would be food, lifestyle, reality. Scripted would be your typical rom-com, cop show, what have you. So he liked the food show best. And I never hosted anything on TV. I've hosted improv and stand-up and emceed things. I've done 60 weddings, and just as an actor, as a gig.
Yeah.
So I 60 weddings. Not all of them are still together, but that's not on me,
That's not.
So the one show that he liked was the food show. So he's like, give me a proof of concept. And what that is essentially, we did a shortened version or a sizzle of what the show would look like, a sizzle reel, or basically a condensed version of what that show would look like, an ABC in a few minutes, right? So it was a food show. Meanwhile, while I was out filming that, he's like, oh, I got this audition for you. And he wasn't my agent. I was like bouncing around between managers. He was an agent, and maybe he would sign me, that's really kind of what you want. But I was bouncing around between many managers and some agencies, but not signed, doing voiceover, doing commercial auditions, TV, film, and so on. So he got me the audition for Man vs. Food. But the kicker is, he's like, yeah, it's this new show called Big Eats. I'm like, all right. I'm like, what is? And he sends me the breakdown. I was like, this seems like a lot like Man vs. Food. I thought it was still on the air. I thought Man vs. Food was still on. This is 2017, younger Casey. And I was like, all right, cool. So they schedule a meeting, of like very much of a Zoom meeting. I think it was FaceTime at the time, with a producer. So cut to, I'm in my apartment, different apartment than this one. At the time, like a couple months prior, I started Airbnb my apartment in Brooklyn. I didn't own the apartment. I still don't. And so that was not really legal. So at the time, but everyone was doing it. And so it afforded me to pay my rent, live in New York City, travel. And in the interim, I would take bartending shifts for my friends. I would cat sit, dog sit, plant sit, whatever I had to do, but I was renting out my place.
Yeah.
Someone was coming into my apartment in like literally like an hour. And I had this producer meeting, this first meeting where they get to know you, they ask these questions. And they're like, "Oh, are you ready for the food segment of the interview?" I'm like, "Oh, what? Like I was supposed to prepare something. I didn't see that in the breakdown and the email. So I was like, "Oh, give me a second," because my place was immaculate because I was cleaning it at the time. So I go to the fridge. There's only one thing in the fridge, and it was a jar of moonshine that I acquired from somewhere in the Carolinas. I had some of it. I had a bunch of it actually, and I had one jar in there though. And I took it out, and I was like, I don't really have any food, but I have moonshine. And I held up this mason jar of moonshine, apple pie moonshine, and I talked about moonshine for 20 minutes. And then cut to, I get a call back. They want me to come actually do a physical audition, which is basically a condensed version of Man versus Food. I do the kitchen beat. I do the DRI, which is dining room interaction, where I talk to people, and then I had to try to crush some cheeseburger. And we're a place called Clinton Hall, which is, there's several of them in New York City now, and they're really amazing. Daryl, who's a chef, we wound up filming there again for the show where we did the audition. Just a fun place. There's games outside. There's crazy burgers, and they have like this flux capacitor that regulates the beer to spec to the actual brewery. So it's like really specific, fun place. And so I did that audition, the physical audition, and then it turned out to be me. So they're like, here I am. They're like, okay, it's like my agent called, that agent called. He's like, hey, you got the show. I was like, what? He's like, you got the show. You got to go sign contracts. I was like, what? I was like, he's like, you're going to be the host, the new host of Big Eats. I'm like, okay, still sounds like Man versus Food. So I go to the offices of the production company, which is Sharp Entertainment. They're right across the street from Bryant Park, which is this humongous building. It's just like so intimidating. And I sit down and I'm signing my name to a contract. I have no idea what I'm doing. The agent's not even there. He's just like, just sign your name and get out of there. I'm like, all right. I was like, so I turn one page, it's Big Eats. I turn the second page, it's Big Eats. I turn the third page, it says Man versus Food, where I actually really had to sign. I was like, holy bleep. I don't know. Do I call my mom? I had to call a lawyer? Like, I don't know. Like, because it was such a big thing, I thought it was still on, quite honestly, because I'm not watching TV. I'm living in New York City trying to get on TV, you know, or film or whatever. So it was like, it was a wow moment. And then from that point on, man, I mean, there's stories between then. We can get into that, but it skyrocketed my life into travel and food and competition, which I wasn't a competitive eater before I got the show. Yeah. I did become one, but I had to go into training because I had eaten like whole pizzas, and I did the milk challenge, did the cinnamon challenge, just like not knowing I would ever be auditioning for Man versus Food. And so, it led to 7 years with a little break in the middle, 6 seasons, 90 episodes of Man versus Food to date.
How long does it take you to film a season? Because I know you just finished one. You've taken a break right now because you're on in between break. But how long does it usually take? Like, give me a little bit of a breakdown. Like, give people an idea of. I guess we'll go full season, and then when you go to a location, like because you go 3 spots, give people kind of like a breakdown of how the heck you guys pull that.
So a season could be 10, depending on how many they're ordering. Right? They put in an order. So, in the beginning, we were doing 3 episodes in a row, and then we were on the road for 3 episodes. And so maybe we're doing 13 or 14 episodes in the first season. That could be a season, 14 episodes or 10. And that takes about 6 months. We were kind of fast tracking because we had to get like the opening, the cold open to what the show is, the introduction to the show. So we had to film it in a bunch of different places. Maybe I didn't do a challenge there, but we filmed it. That looked like I was like about to eat a giant. You can see in the beginning of Man versus Food. Yeah, there's like a huge rump roast, and I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do with this? So that takes about 6 months. An episode takes just filming. We fly in, shoot 3 days in a row. On the third day is the last hour is the challenge, and then the next day we either fly home or fly to the next. Or drive to the next location. So it's 3 days of filming. And then there's voiceover, where I go into an actual studio and I record the voiceover. You hear my voice throughout, introducing each restaurant and just kind of plugging in the place. Is that something that you do? Like, you're writing notes while you're at these locations? Like when oftentimes you go do that stuff is like, because there's a team of producers that write copy. Like, a lot of the show is the stuff that's very specific is written, right? There's things that I have to say to
Yeah.
move the piece along, and then a lot of it's improvised. Me talking to people is improvised. Me in the kitchen is improvised. But there's things that I have to say within the voiceover to get to from A, B to C. So it just moves the thing along. So it's scripted. So it's voiceover work. So which I love. Like before doing the show, I was doing a ton of voiceover stuff and for random, brands, which is really amazing. So not only do I get to be on camera, I'm hosting, I'm walking and talking, and I'm, I get to do the voiceover stuff, But this is my first foray into hosting and the travel part. Like I was just a kid from Jersey living in Brooklyn trying to get acting jobs. And then like this just like took me to somewhere else,
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I got Man versus Food, right? So, all right, I'll back it up a little bit. So I used to have a beard and I booked a bunch of stuff with a beard. And then that was like, it's starting to get a little gray, I was like, geez. So I shaved the beard for this one audition for this cop show that I was filming in New York. It was a comedy. I forget which one it was, but I didn't get that job. But because I shaved my beard, I got every job after that. I got 5 jobs in a row, which is just like one by one by one. And one of them was Man versus Food. And the other one was a commercial that we shot in Panama, in the country of Panama. And I got that after I got Man versus Food. And it was the week of me flying out we went to Milwaukee for the first episode that we filmed. So we shoot this crazy German real estate commercial. It was a beautiful and wonderful experience. While in Panama, I lost my passport. We're leaving that morning, and the other actors, the 2 American actors, just my passport went missing. And like, they paid us in cash, and like I didn't have any money in my bank. I'm an actor living in New York City, so I had to somehow get funds into my bank account from home. I was calling my friend, and I had to get a passport to get home because I was leaving in like 2 days to go to Milwaukee to film the first episode of Man versus Food. And I had a first date on that Saturday. So long or the short, it was Thursday that it happened. Wednesday that it happened. Thursday, I got a new passport. Friday was Good Friday. The whole country shuts down. So if I didn't get it Thursday, I would have been in Panama for the weekend and celebrating nothing. While not being able to make the plane to go to Milwaukee to shoot the first episode of Man versus Food. So someone was on my side. I don't know what it was, but it was a crazy set of experiences, and a lot of exciting things were happening all at that time that led to the first episode. So
wow, that's
trying to sum it up.
Memorable.
Trying to sum it up.
That's definitely memorable. A great, a memorable first. Thank goodness you did, because who knows what would have happened.
Got to go on the date, and then that Monday, I flew out to Milwaukee. And then it's like that just set my whole life changed from that whole series of circumstances and jobs led to just me skyrocketing into the outer planets of fooddom.
And a lot of it had to do with you having to shave your beard.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I gained 10 years, on my life. I just look so much younger. I still, it's starting to come in a little bit.
One of the things that I do love about, what I think is so amazing about what you do on the show is the fact that you guys are giving so much exposure to all these small businesses.
Yes.
And I think that's so amazing what it's like. And for me, obviously one of my highlights is the fact that I got to do this. I got to be on the show when amazing. We were in Orlando, and you and I got to interact and talk, and I got to experience, like, see what you see with like the cameras and the people. And I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's also, it's a lot of work, and you're going nonstop, because you're kind of like, oh, where am I today? I am here today, but then I got to go to another restaurant and do something else somewhere else.
Each episode helped me get to the next episode and just create a system. And those systems help me just be better on camera, just be present and get my homework done the night before, things I have to know, and just be prepared. So it was definitely a learning curve, and like, that's pretty much that's been my life. I didn't go to classic conservatory for acting. I didn't go to your classic definition of culinary school. I kind of did it on my own. I trained for sure with some amazing people, be it in the acting world and the culinary world. But yeah, I kind of did it on my own, and I had to figure it out. So it's like, I had to figure out on the road while doing the job, how to eat crazy stuff, how to walk and talk, how to do that. They're like, we want you to be yourself. I was like, I don't know who that is. I guess I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah.
Shooting all these episodes. Like, we don't want an actor. We want Casey. So, which is, the beautiful part of that, I got to be myself. And like that came through and that I was able to shine. So when I meet people randomly on the street, hotels, airport, wherever, it's like they feel like they can approach me, and I'm so glad that they do, because it's like one of my most favorite things are the people. It's like I worked in restaurants my whole life. It's like I love people, and oftentimes I'm the one still talking. They're like, we gotta go. We got a reservation. We gotta catch a flight.
So can we talk a little bit about having people in your corner? I think it's so important to have like cheerleaders and people being like, and even you yourself being on like being there for other people. Like what's the significance or the importance for you to be that kind of cheerleader for other people, as well as also to have people on your side? Because when you're doing something challenging, like, looking for opportunities, like you are, you kind of, it could be very dejecting. There's a lot of failure involved, and a lot of like rejection sometimes. So like, can we talk a little bit about the importance of having some of those people in your corner when you're trying to do something like that, and kind of, audition and just kind of have constant struggle of looking for the right opportunity for you?
So one of the greatest discoveries is realizing that failure is your friend. Like, you got to become real close with failure, because it's one of your greatest teachers. Some of the worst people in your life could be your greatest teacher. And I was very fortunate at a young age to have surrogate, be it parents, friends, mentors, people that kind of stepped up or just stepped into certain parts of my life where I kind of needed it, be it guidance counselors or teachers or friends, parents. My parents split up when I was a kid, so it kind of rocked my world when I was younger, not knowing how to process. And so I definitely was also very much a distracted kid. So I was, I was the first Casey that I met, and it wasn't until I was 18 that I met another Casey that wasn't a Labrador or a girl. So, and I was a chubby little redheaded kid. So that's where Husky for Life comes from. And it's like, no matter where I am or how big or small I am, I'll always be Husky for Life. And it's not a negative. It's like, it reminds me of who I am. It's like Husky for Life is like this. You have a luster, a bigness for life. You have, so I was very fortunate to have people step in. Both my parents are great on their own. Together, not so much, but on their own, they were really good for me. They really guided me. My dad, especially with sports, because sports was a huge component of just directing my energy and my focus at a young age. Because like in grammar school, I had to go to another school for a couple of years, and that's where I first stepped into legitimate culinary. I was washing dishes at a pizza place at 14, but like I went to this other school, which really helped my focus. And because I was just getting in trouble. I was just like, getting kicked out of class, and like, we got to do something with this kid. So I went to this other school, and they were like, well, we recommend medication. My dad's like, no. So no meds, but I went to this other school. But it was my first foray or introduction to actually knife skills and just basically simple, fundamental restaurants, kitchen stuff, which was amazing, because like I realized like, oh, that's where my focus needs to go. It needs something specific: sports, culinary, and so on, whatever that be. I got into martial arts. I got into mountain biking. So a lot of physical stuff, that helped guide me throughout this little crazy world of mine. So, sports was a big component. And, it's funny how, when the need is there, and if you're open and present to it, usually, people show up, things show up, opportunity shows up, and you just have to get off the couch. So that's the thing. You have to meet it halfway. I find, or I found. So, even to this day, it's like with Man versus Food, for instance, there have been many challenges, and like we did 90, right? So there was a lot of them there that I was like, there's no way that I'm finishing this thing. Meanwhile, there's 20 people behind me screaming and yelling, and they were oftentimes what pushed me over the edge in a good way to finish the thing, not that, finishing a giant cheeseburger is, a thing of greatness, but, in the moment, my job, it was, So it's amazing what the energy of the people or the crowd can do for you. And then even singularly, like one person, can give you that boost that you need. And that's like being a good friend. We were just talking about a mutual friend offline. And it's like, showing up for people is everything,
Yeah.
and people that love like the show or watch the show is oftentimes I'll be in the airport, I'll be in my head, and somebody will be like, "Hey, are you the guy from?" and it'll take me out of my head and like take me out of a place where just I shouldn't be anyway. It's
Yeah.
like I should be present. And that to me is amazing. And we have that ability as human beings to do that, to kind of in a moment take you out of your nonsense or your mishigas or your whatever's clouding your head. So I know I went off a little bit, but
No, that's great. No, man, it's good. And speaking of, it's great that you talked about sports and like and being obviously being a cheerleader. I wanted to say congrats because I know
I
that
wasn't a
you.
cheerleader, but those guys are really strong.
No, they are. Yeah, but you are but if you're cheering on the people on,
Yes,
and
yeah,
especially being on their side and being there for them on their
right.
side, I do know that like and being in that case, congrats on. I saw one of the things I just saw recently that you got. You're also the host of like Vizio's like new streaming service, like three
Thank you.
pointers
Yes.
with like food hacks. It's like a mixture of, from what I saw, it's like a series featuring like sports theme hacks and food and beverage entertainment for fans and stuff like that.
So that came out of nowhere, which was really fun because I really enjoy people, and I enjoy working with people, especially on camera, because it's like there's so much you get from other people without even knowing it. It's like, and be it improvising or just talking about food, but this is really fun too because they're shorter segments and it lives on Vizio. So Vizio is an American company based in California. They're like the second largest distributors of TV in the country, and they have their own programming. So it lives on Vizio TV. So if you're privy enough to have a Vizio TV, which I got one, they sent me one.
Nice.
I had one, but then they sent me another one, so I was able to give that one away, the other one. So yeah, it was really fun. So three pointers was kind of a play on the basketball March Madness. So it was like three different pointers, one being a drink, one being a game, and the other being a snack when your friends come over to watch basketball specifically. So I just found out we're going to do more of those, which is really amazing. Not necessarily basketball, but another sport. But it's going to live on Vizio. So that's become something which is really exciting because a lot of things are going the way of the stream, right? There's so many different platforms to put out content, be it social media with our social platforms, and then now on TV, on actual physical TVs, they're doing their own programming, which is really, really fun. So I'm very fortunate. I'm psyched that they like me well enough to bring me on board to do that stuff. So yeah, we get to do some. I think we're doing some really soon, actually, a bunch of them. So it's exciting.
I love it. Do you have any you got any hack maybe at home hack that you recommend or that you learned from doing the three pointers that you're like, ooh, this is a good one. I'm gonna use this one too.
Prior to three pointers, I love repurposing leftovers. That's a major hack for me. Like elevating the food that's basically rotting in your fridge. Like I love doing that. Like that to me is a hack. Like I hate wasting food. Maybe that's why I'm such a big guy because I don't let food go to waste. So that in itself is a hack. It's like, taking something that you might have to carve out something, you might have to take away what's not going to, what you can't repurpose, but it's really elevating food. I'm all about elevating food, be it, your hot dog, your classics, to just bring them up a level, whether it be with the condiment or adding something, even like, bringing another vegetable in. So I really like taking food that I've eaten the night before and repurposing it the next day. So that to me is fun for me because I could look in my fridge and it's almost like, I don't know if you remember the moment in Chaplin when he goes in and he goes into the wardrobe and there's a hat and there's a cane and there's his jacket or whatever, and like they glow in the dark, and he's like, he reaches for it, it comes to him. So when I open the fridge, I have so many Anthony, I have more condiments than food in my fridge, like seriously, like from all over the place. I collect honey, hot sauce, coffee, and then like weird condiments that I get from just traveling around the country. So I think it's like, work with what you got is my point, is a good hack. It's like there's so much you can do with what's simply in your fridge already. I just overdo it a little bit because I actually bought a bigger fridge because the one I had, it was so small. It was like, the fridges that have the ice box on top,
yeah,
fridge on the bottom. I had to take a knee every time to go into the fridge because it's not the biggest kitchen, you know. So I was like, this sucks. Like, so I got a new fridge. But working with what you got, I think, is one of the greatest hacks.
So one of the things, Casey, that obviously that you and I we obviously hit it off. Like I will say that to me, it's like a great thing to be able to, like, you and I were chatting, and one of the things that we chatted about when I was when we were eating at Pig Floyd's and I was eating the mata hambre and we were chatting, was one of the things is that
From New Jersey.
We're both from Jersey, which is obviously one of those big ones. And then one of the first things I think I brought up to you, we both kind of talked about, because I always ask Jersey people, is like, hey, what do you call it? Do you call it Taylor ham, or do you call it pork roll?
I don't know what you said first, but I pork roll. Yeah, pork roll.
I like it. And one of the things that I think one of the funny parts is, because I'm from North Jersey,
Yes.
born and raised, and we call it Taylor ham. And
Right.
Casey's from South Jersey, and so they call it
Central.
pork roll.
Central.
Yeah,
Some
they
call
call
it Central.
Yeah, the central, anywhere from central south, they somehow it's pork roll. And even though that's literally what it is. And so that was something that
Do you know that legally it can't be called ham because it's not ham?
I heard something about that. And I actually also heard that supposedly the word Taylor ham is like actually not copyrighted anymore, or something like that.
Trademarked.
Yeah, supposedly. But at the end of the day, I call it Taylor ham pork roll, just because I'm Switzerland, I guess, now that I live in Florida, and so that doesn't bother anybody.
I don't, you know what? Oftentimes it was people that weren't from New Jersey that would call it Taylor ham because they went to college with someone in North Jersey, somewhere else, and they called it Taylor ham. So I felt that they didn't have the authority to call it Taylor ham or anything. So that's where most of my quarrels came from with people that I knew, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I stand on my soapbox. So, you know, in calling it pork roll, because it is what the product is, pork roll, right?
Yeah.
And the brand is Taylor. So
it is.
And it can't be called ham anymore because legally it's not allowed to, because it's more like spam than it is ham.
Correct.
And that was like, you know, the law. So yeah, and I love your shirt, by the way.
But thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's one of the big things that I got a wonderful opportunity for. One of the things that I can safely say that was been a highlight for me was the fact that you and I started interacting, and then you literally were like, hey, we should do something together. And I was like, hey, I've actually been thinking about doing like a Taylor ham pork roll type shirt. And so I think it worked out very well. You and I got to go on a few calls, and got to work with another person that we know, a mutual person that I knew, that I introduced us to, Blair Campbell, who's a designer. And
Blair Campbell. I mean, what a nice way to pay tribute to an American New Jersey classic like pork roll with Taylor made. You know,
yeah.
I really feel like we did. It's a nice homage to it. Without maybe picking a side, right? I mean,
so yeah, it's basically, it says pork roll on it, but it says enjoy pork roll, tailor made for Jersey. Now, the thing that so when Casey and I were talking, and one of the hardest parts always, obviously, when you're collaborating with someone, is the fact that trying to come up with an idea together, and and kind of seeing if both of our ideas would blend or not blend.
Right.
And what was great was that Casey was like, hey, he basically kind of, since the beginning, he was always kind of like, hey, I think it should be something where almost it looks like welcome to like a welcome to a city,
like
and then
classic postcards, like greetings from, well, I'm biased because I like Bruce Springsteen, but one of his albums was greetings from Asbury Park, and inside the letters, which we did for the actual pork roll, you could see all the great landmarks in New Jersey, right? And that was like that was a hive mind. That was you and me and Blair and time and emails and
a lot of texts.
But I think overall, I think it came out amazing. And your shirts, I've gotten so many compliments from friends that actually, that went ahead and purchased them, and just how I was going to show, because I was going to open it up, because how beautifully you package your shirts for all of your shirts.
Yeah.
It's like you go the extra mile and then some with it, because typically you just get a shirt in a plastic bag. You don't do that.
Correct. No, and that's one of the reasons why I want you to be able to do your own, so that way you can post it on your social on it, especially for the day.
Okay.
I
I've been
definitely
holding
think
on
you
to
guys
this
do
for a
good.
while.
I know you have. I know you have. But one of the things that I love about it is that we basically kind of come up with the idea of blending both of these, like, kind of like, hey, because I'm, like I said, I'm from North Jersey, he's from Central
Yes.
Jersey, and Blair, I believe Blair's in that kind of in the same realm. So like one of the things that we were talking about was like different landmarks as you see it. So it was cool to see some like, the design obviously is something that I find very cool, because it's like it's got everything from like the Cape May Lighthouse, the Ferris wheel, Lucy, the state capitol, Jersey Parkway, Tilly, and I was like, hey, what about like the north side of Jersey? We like, we see the Statue of Liberty and the golden, George Washington Bridge. So it was just like a really cool and fun thing that we got to do together, that I absolutely loved the fact that we got to actually, work on this together. And it's something that, has both our names on it. And it's something that's obviously like what we wanted. Our goal, we feel that, the goal was to blend Jersey and, kind of like both Jersey fans all together into one. I still get North Jersey people obviously telling me like, oh, it doesn't say, it should say Taylor Ham. And I'm like, well, it does say Taylor. It says Taylor made for Jersey. I was like, it's, but it is at the end pork roll. It is at the end. That's what it is.
I'm really proud of it, man. And, because the shirt itself, like you already established with your business with Deli Fresh Threads, and then, to be able to insert and work on, the pork roll idea, because it's like this coveted thing, people that outside of New Jersey, they might get it now, but since I was a kid, my whole life, it's like it's either pork roll or Taylor ham, and just to be part of just the experience alone was really great with you and Blair and myself coming to terms with what it looks like, and then you taking it and then making the shirt, having it delivered, which is really so exciting, especially the way I said it before, but how you package the shirts. It's just, it's kind of, it's one of a kind. It's another snowflake.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It definitely is. And that's something that I appreciate, because it's something that you reached out to me and we were able to kind of do that. And I think that's something that I was going to bring up about like how important it is to have that, be able to do those collaborations with other people. I mean, especially in your world, like you have so many different people when you're interacting with different things, from like the writers to the different actors, the crew, everyone that you kind of deal with. I mean, I saw how many, I didn't realize how many people are involved in making a show like, Man vs. Food. And also obviously you've done larger like sitcoms and things like that as well, which is even probably larger than that, those type of crews. So it's amazing to be able to see that kind of collaboration that you have, and being able to work with different people, that are coming from different angles.
That's the best part of it, because it's not, sure, for Man vs. Food, I might be the host, but it takes the village, and I couldn't have done it without any of the production folks. I worked production for a long time while I was pursuing acting and working in restaurants, and I had to make a decision. I really loved production because you could really work your way up very quickly. So I think, I'm thankfully I had that experience, because when I finally got to bigger shows and really like Man vs. Food, or some of the TV and film work I've done, or even voiceover, is just know how to act. It's like treat people well, and you're a human being, and just treat people accordingly. So it really paved the way for me working in production. So I have such a great respect for it. I film stuff to myself, and it's, I get it, and honestly, it's like I like the idea of how, what I love about the show the most, Man vs. Food specifically, because it's a travel food show, is that we can elevate the doers, the people that are actually doing the work every day, the people in the kitchens, the people in the front of the house, the people that are running these mom and pop businesses, because the majority of them they're smaller, they're not funded by major corporations. So it's like, that's kind of one of the major things that kept me going. It wasn't the food that kept me going, maybe sustaining.
Yeah.
I needed food to keep going, but it was really the people and the businesses, because anytime you go to any business, whether it be Man vs. Food or any travel show or any show that goes to someone's business, is you have the opportunity to increase their business by 40, 50% when that show airs. Every time that show airs, they get a bump in business. And it's like, wow, In the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. This is a lot. It's a lot of food, and it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure and stress, and no complaints, But there's other things that you don't see that come along with the job, right?
Yeah.
So, but this the nature of what it was doing, what we could be doing for other people, kept me in the game. Truthfully, like I honestly probably would have moved on early on, but it was just that was the thrill for me. That was the hook. It wasn't like I didn't want to get better at competitive eating. I just wanted to do more of the travel, meeting people. And because every time I would do a little bit of research about everywhere we went, I had enough information to soak up, but so I could really experience it with kids' eyes, like fresh eyes, being somewhere that I've never been before and just being present and just, walking. I mean, the best way you see any city, I've lived in New York most of my life, most of my adult life. And the best way to see any city is by walking its streets, and navigating it that way. So yeah, very the collaboration, we're back to that. But the collaboration with the Pork Hotel were made for New Jersey is so much fun, and the fact that I was a part of it because you already had your brand, and it's such a it's so comfortable too.
I'm glad.
That's why I got more. I got more in the box.
Yeah. No, I love it. Hey, when you guys are filming, how often or how much free time do you have any free time where you actually can, like, besides the locations that you're filming at, like, that you actually get to have some free time to actually like roam the city and see stuff? I know sometimes you guys have like planned like a little bit of, like, I'm assuming a little bit of free time in some areas to maybe be able to do some stuff outside of work, not, because you'll get burned out pretty quick going like a full, 3 or 4 days in one place and then gone. But like, do you get to actually go and like roam a city and be able to do that for at least for a short period of time when you're not eating and filming?
The beauty is that if we get there early enough, the day before we film, you could roam around. I would go to dinner with with my producer or the crew. If we can all get together. A lot of times the crew's getting ready for the next day, myself included. But we would, you could explore the city as soon as we get there. Depending on where we are. Some places we were remote. Like we were in Alaska.
Yeah.
Not a lot to explore on your own, but yeah. And then after filming, so the first 2 days. When we're done filming, there's a little bit of time after that. Some days are longer than others depending on the weather and what we have to do and what we have to fit in. But the third day is the challenge day. So the night before the challenge day, I'm typically preparing myself to eat something hot or huge. So that's either with the hot stuff, I basically microdose myself with hot chilies, be it powdered. I travel with it and put it in everything that I'm eating just so my system has it in it. I mean, I do eat a fair amount of hot food anyway, but like hotter than what I would normally eat. Your ghost chilies, your Carolina Reaper, mostly ghost chili, because it just has a lot of flavor and it's hot, but dilute it in your food. I do that, it's fat soluble. So capsaicin. So if you put it in like mayo, just really smoky and delicious, right? But it's also hot. So this way your system gets used to it. Or if I'm eating something huge, you have to make space. So it's a lot of water, a lot of greens. Yeah. Like you have to really, truth be told, you have to expand your stomach. Because it's not about not eating. It's about making room for the food that's coming in. So people that do it all the time, I know people that do them, they do a couple in a row. They're better than me. But so for the shoot day, for the time that we're on the road, it's the first 2 days or when we can go out. And then depending on where we are. So if we usually typically shoot 2 episodes in a row now, when we're done with the second episode, I often would stay. So for instance, we're in Hawaii. So at the time, my girlfriend flew out and we spent 6-7 days in Hawaii after I had a Crushing Giant Cheeseburger. I gave it a day. I was like, maybe come out in 2 days and then we'll, run around Maui. So yeah, the beauty about it is the second leg of the trip or the second episode of that run, I was able to stay or travel. Like in Alaska, I stayed in Alaska for a couple of days after filming. We did wherever we were before, and then Alaska. I was in Alaska for 2 days, and I flew to Seattle. Then I drove to San Jose, California, which is a pretty long leg, which is amazing. It was amazing. So yeah, there is some free time. Not a lot though. It's 3 days. We're 3 days in any city, so it's pretty quick.
I guess we'll go with favorite city that you've been, favorite city that you've enjoyed, and then the other one is, which city surprised you food wise?
So before I was in New Orleans for the first time when I was waiting to hear whether or not I got the show. So I went down there by myself because I was doing this play. It was a play. It was an immersive play with some people that were actors in a theater company which is called Sleep No More, where they do interactive kind of um, uh, theater in like a warehouse, and it's like you're part of the thing as audience member, you're part of the experience. So we were doing this Tennessee Williams experience thing, and so I all he talks about is New Orleans because he lived there. He's a writer, he's a poet, and he was a playwright. And so I went down there by myself, and for the first time, turns out I had friends that were there because they were setting up because they were going to get married down there, and they asked me to be their officiant when I was down there randomly by myself to do some research for this Tennessee Williams project. So I fell in love with New Orleans then. I always say this, and it's partly true, but I'm married to New York, but I'm in love with New Orleans. New Orleans is just, every time I go there, it's just something different. It's a completely different experience because it's ever revolving music. The food is often the same, but just it's such a heightened food and culinary just experience because there's a ton of history there. We got to film there, so I have a great love for New Orleans. I would say. I mean, the thing about traveling with Man versus Food and doing a show like that is that I got to go to the places where things came from, like the origin of things. Like Nympha's in Houston. It was where fajitas essentially came from. From that because of just the demand for the food and how it was made, like that. Just as an example. New Orleans, you got gumbo. And I got to learn from. While filming, Leah Chase, who's no longer with us, she taught me how to make gumbo from scratch, she's 96 at the time, and I just sat there and listened. So that's the really beauty about that, and that's what made me fall in love with New Orleans because there's so much history that's condensed in one area. And so the city that surprised me the most, a lot of times these smaller cities are. A lot of these folks that lived there, grew up there, went somewhere else and came back and brought their experiences back home, which that's throughout the entire country, I found. But Pittsburgh is not New York. It's not Philly. It's not Chicago. It's not Boston. It's its own thing. It's its own nucleus of food. And it had major sports teams, some of the biggest fans, that I've encountered, and the food, there's a lot of Eastern European influence, Polish, there's Italian, like coal miner, steel worker. So it was like rugged at one time, but it's just a thriving city. I loved it so much. After we filmed there, that the week before Christmas, my girlfriend at the time and we went to celebrate Christmas, before the actual holiday, because they usually celebrate in New York, and you see, the Rockefeller Center, you do all that. It's amazing. You go, you can go ice skating, but like to do that in another city, to celebrate that time of the year in another city was just, it was like my first Christmas, it was like, because it was so new, I never experienced in that city. So New Orleans and Pittsburgh, I would say.
I love it. It's always interesting to see. That's one of my favorite things to do about traveling is being able to see and be surprised by those places and what the food they have and what they bring. And the beauty of it is you get to see some of the top places when you go. So you kind of have, you're kind of almost like a Rolodex of where to go and where to eat when you go somewhere.
It's people often ask me, well, what's the best cheeseburger? What's the best burger? I'm like, the next one I'm about to eat.
Yeah. The next one I'm slamming down.
The next one I'm gonna, because I'd hate to be a food critic. I don't want that job. Good for you. If you want, take it on. I'm not criticizing anything. I like elevating, that's what I like to do. That's me.
I'm in your book. Like everyone always asks me, like, come on, don't you want to do like a one bite and rate it? And I'm like, no, I'll just tell you the ones I like. I was like, and if I don't like it, I just won't talk about it. And I'll just, but if I'm telling you, then just know it's good because I'm telling you.
Because every burger could have a bad day. So,
So in your world, is a burger.
I don't want to judge that burger on one bite, So
no one should. No one should, especially since sometimes it takes a few bites to get to the good stuff.
Right. Do you consider the Tootsie Roll Pop, right?
You can exactly. Do you consider a burger a sandwich?
A burger's a burger, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, burger's a burger. I like to delineate between the two, you
Yeah.
know, just how I grew up. I mean, we ate it all. My
Yeah.
dad is from the Bronx. My mom's from Hell's Kitchen, both from New York. And condiments are our friend, and they were my whole life. Ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, always in the fridge. And so there was a lot of bread. There was a lot of sandwiches in my life, salads, you know. So I like the delineation between, because the burger, oh, we're gonna go eat burgers. Because you said we're gonna have a sandwich, like, oh, what kind of sandwich? We
Yeah.
know you're gonna get a burger. Oh, it's a whole new
That's a
thing.
burger. Yep. Yep.
Whole
Yep.
thing. Yeah.
Do you have a go-to condiment? What's your condiment of choice?
Man, I have so many. I would say hot sauce, but like I
Okay.
think hot sauce is its own thing,
Yeah.
because I feel like ketchup, mustard, and mayo are like the trinity.
Yep.
And then there's variations of that. Like, so there's different kinds of mayonnaise. I definitely have Duke's and Kewpie mayo in my fridge.
Okay. I like it.
Different mayos.
Yeah.
Kewpie is a bit fattier because I think it's more egg yolk in it. And
Yep.
I just like Duke's. I grew up
Dukes
on
is
health.
good. Yeah. Dukes is good.
I probably have 6 different kinds of mayo. Some have relish in them.
I
Some
absolutely love
are
this.
some have seeds in them. Yeah, I'm like, why not? And it's just, again, it's like you open the fridge. It's like whatever's calling to you at that moment. It's like, what protein am I working with now? Am I dealing with a rotisserie chicken? And there's 1,000 things you can do with a rotisserie chicken, which is, don't get me started on that, which
Yeah.
is great. I make tons of soup and whatever. So yeah, condiments are, like I said, they take over the fridge. It's kind of overwhelming.
I'm gonna be sending you a package because one of the things I'm working with Blair is actually something related to that. So you will appreciate it when you get it. I'm gonna make sure you get one as soon as you'll be one of the first people to get it when we finally finish with it.
Thank you.
Which is awesome. What advice would you give someone? I guess we'll go with two things. Like, what's the best advice you've ever gotten, or maybe a mantra or something that you follow on your day-to-day life?
Focus on the work. It's actually right there. I have it just so I don't forget. Because oftentimes I know I do, at least I get too caught up in my head, and then I'm not worried. I'm focused on other things that don't matter, things that I don't have control over. And the work, whatever that work be, is going to give everything you need. If you put your energy into the thing, whatever that is, that's always helped me focus. So don't worry about the other stuff. Just focus on what is driving you to do the work is part of that too. Because once you start focusing on the work, you realize like, oh, okay, I have the energy for this, or the creativity starts flowing in. I'm a scattered person. Well, and sometimes that can be creative and fun too. But when I narrow my focus on something, nothing can stop me, typically. So I love being directed. I love ensemble. I love being part of a team. I do better that way. So this is my personal hack, to focus on, to help me get things that I want to get done. I can't tell how many pieces of paper I have ideas written on. I've now put it on one book, but focus on the work helps me put my energy into the specific thing that I'm working on.
I love that. Would that also be the same advice you would give someone if someone were to, if I were to say, hey, what's some advice you would give someone that wants to start something?
Yeah, I think it's just about starting it, and I often have trouble with it too, because I have a million and one ideas. It's really taking, the failure part is a big component of that. Failure is your friend. It's okay to fall down. I've fallen down so much. Man, I'm not the greatest competitive eater, and I'm okay with that, like, because I didn't go into it. That wasn't the challenge for me.
Correct.
There were so many other challenges. That was one of them. And I have to do that one physically, but there were so many other things for me to prove to myself by doing the show and continue to do the show, that have shaped and molded and helped me grow, So, yeah, I think.
No, I love that. I think that totally hits it. Let's go with this. Where can people follow you, see you, watch you, and support you?
Oh, I like that. That's nice. Social media is I'm Husky for Life on Instagram, Twitter. It took away the blue.
I saw that.
Mark. Whatever. That's Casey's Call, and then I'm also on Facebook, and it's Casey Webb, and TikTok is Casey Webb or Husky for Life. It's one of the others. But yeah, Vizio TV, that's the newest thing. So if you have a Vizio TV, tune in. There's 3 pointers. There's 4 episodes of that are on there now. Man vs. Food is streaming on Discovery Plus and or Cooking Channel. We first started on Travel Channel. Travel Channel is under the same umbrella as Cooking Food, HETV. Now Warner Brothers is part of that, so it's Warner Discovery. So yeah, if you want to watch Man vs. Food, it's on Discovery Plus, or you find it on Travel Channel. And that's the 7th season is TBD. Not sure when that's happening, but I've had some time to digest, which is really good. And I've done some traveling, which is just more exploratory food stuff. I was in Thailand this year, Costa Rica, Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and I just got back from Ireland. So I've been on the move.
Yeah, man, for sure. You've been, and the fun part is you're traveling, even if it's not for work, you're just traveling for your own accord.
I do better. I just do better. I feel like, I want to keep everything fresh. And so I feel like when I travel, I'm living out of a bag, and that's all I really need. I have stuff, but like, I don't really need the stuff. So yeah, when I travel, I just learn more. I feel like I'm like a student of the world, and I like to keep that going. It's I call it research and development. At least that's what I say to the tax man.
The heck yeah. That's awesome, Casey. Casey, thank you so much for being on, man, and chatting with me. I always love it when we get to text or interact with each other. So I definitely appreciate it. That's our show,
man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Casey Webb for being on and having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check him out. Obviously, make sure to check out our shirt together at Deli Fresh Threads. Obviously, if you want to support me, you can check out my brand. Make sure you will see in the show notes all the ways that you can follow Casey. You obviously will be able to see it on the Instagram, because I'll be posting and tagging him on our Instagram post during the week that the show airs. So definitely make sure to check out that. And then if you want to support me, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads. Make sure to tell your friends. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion.